Good afternoon and welcome to Webinar Wednesday. Today we are joined by Sarina Malik, Senior Talent Acquisition Partner, and Courtney Kinkade, Director of Workforce Strategies at TRIMEDX. Webinar Wednesday would like to thank our sponsor, TRIMEDX. As an industry-leading independent clinical assessment management company, TRIMEDX helps healthcare providers transform their clinical assets into strategic tools, driving reductions in operational expenses, optimizing clinical asset capital spend, maximizing resources for patient care, and delivering improved safety and protection. So for more information, please visit trimedx.com. And just a quick reminder about our Spring MD Expo. We're headed to the M Resort Spa Casino in Las Vegas from April the 7th to the 9th. So please join us for 3 days of education, networking, and the latest advances in medical technology products and services. Registration is now open, so for more details, please visit mdexposhow.com. Today's webinar is of course eligible for 1 CE credit from the ACI, and you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey, which will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once the survey is submitted. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Let's kick off today's webinar by giving away one of our Webinar Wednesday 10th anniversary prizes. Today's prize is a pair of Apple AirPods, 2nd generation. So using the questions feature on your dashboard, let me know the answer to the following trivia question. Today is National Hot Chocolate Day. What is the name of the author of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? I'll reveal the answer and the winner at the end of the webinar. We'll wrap up today's presentation with a live Q&A, so please submit your questions anytime using the questions feature on the webinar dashboard. As I mentioned earlier, our presenters today are Sarina Malik and Courtney Kinkade, and they will be discussing clinical engineering navigating industry trends. So Courtney, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be invited to Webinar Wednesday. Even more of an honor that all of you have chosen to dedicate the next 45 minutes to an hour with us. I hold that in high esteem, and I'm humbled by you being here. I've been in the clinical engineering industry for the latter part of 4 years. I've spent a majority of my career in the HR and the talent attraction space. So I've had the distinct pleasure of really understanding candidate journeys and developing alongside corporations an opportunity for associates and employees to maximize their career journey. So I've gotten a firsthand look at the trends and the changes in the industry over the course of the last 4 years. And as most of you on this call can attest to, it has been significant. So I'm excited to jump in with you today and talk about some of these trends that we might be able to navigate together. I'm joined today by Sarina Malik, who will now introduce herself.
Everyone, I'm Sarina Malik, and I have been with TRIMEDX since this past fall. So I am a recent joiner of the tribe. I'm really excited that I've been able to jump into the clinical engineering space and be able to bring my talents in recruiting and HR to the table. I have about 9 years of recruiting experience across many different industries, primarily technology and consulting, as well as financial services. And for me, my biggest focus has always been being able to help the talent, those that are looking to get into a new industry or continue to level up within the industry that they're in, whether it's interview preparation, working on their resume, and really creating their brand that they can carry out with them throughout their career. So I'm really excited to share with you all today. I know we have a lot of different perspectives in the audience today, maybe those that are already in the clinical engineering space, maybe those that are looking to jump into clinical engineering and grow their skill set and start that journey. So hopefully a few things that we share today will resonate with all of you.
Thank you, Sarina. So excited you're here. I'm so excited you joined the team. And again, I'm so excited you're all here to hear a little bit from us today. As with most businesses, right, we started off the year in preparatory efforts for the year 2024. A lot of that consisted of, considering or understanding a lot of the, these industry, what we've heard as industry trends, right? And that is hey, we're seeing a decline in skilled technical talent. We're seeing more and more folks leaving the industry. That was especially prominent during the COVID era, right? A lot of folks are leaving us for what they considered safe jobs outside of a hospital setting. So we started to all feel that pressure. It wasn't necessarily just that person leaving the industry. It was all of their colleagues at their site who were taking on significant amount of more work. It was many of you on the call as leaders representing to your client why you had gaps in productivity or why you weren't necessarily meeting your obligations to them as a client because you were missing some of that really skilled talent. So that was a really painful era for us. I think most of us can probably agree that during and then post-pandemic, we were in just a really unique time. I call it the identity crisis time. We were really trying to find our footing, understanding where we go from here. How do we fill these gaps? And then how do we really create this kind of pathway or lineage of not only just a successful career in clinical engineering, but a fulfilling career in clinical engineering. You know, that's one thing we talk about in our space a lot is we're unsung heroes. I've said this to some of you in the industry. So if you've heard this analogy before, I apologize. But you know, if you watched the commercials that during the pandemic, you saw a lot of patient-facing professions. You saw, of course, physicians, nursing staff, et cetera. You didn't see really any biomeds, right? You didn't see any of the clinical engineers behind the scenes making sure that all of the devices that were used for treatment and or diagnostic were safe. Right, so I tell my teams all the time that we are the unsung heroes, but with that unsung nature, then I think creates a really difficult environment for us to appeal to folks who might want to join this industry or even sharing that this industry exists. So TRIMEDX has had a really fun time, I'd say, over the course of the last 12 to 18 months in evaluating what does our current workforce landscape look like. And then we leveled up. So not does what TRIMEDX's workforce landscape look like, but what does the entire CE landscape look like? Now we had some friends, right? A lot of this data wasn't necessarily captured and or predicted by TRIMEDX, but we had some friends along the way and we have some really good industry partners who are willing to go on this journey with us. But what we found was across the board, we had an aging workforce or an aging population of folks who were probably getting closer to retirement eligible or retirement age. And we had a slim amount of folks who were joining or entering the clinical engineering space. And we thought, well, why is that? You know, apart from us being unsung heroes, apart from folks not necessarily recognizing that this is a career field, but why, as attractive and as exciting and as lucrative as a career in clinical engineering can be, why are we not attracting the talent that we should be? So through those conversations, we've really developed some key things today. Now I could talk about this all day long. None of you want to hear me talk about this all day long, and I don't think we have enough credits to give you to hear me talk about it all day long. So instead, what we've done is we've pulled out some of those key themes, some of our key strategies that I think are going to be important for each of you to know or understand or recognize in some way. And I think most of you, if not all of you, can really influence these and champion these inside of your own organization. So the first idea or the first thought or strategy of ours was to really appeal to non-traditional talent. If that's not a term that's new to you, we'll move or advance to the next slide and I'll explain a little bit more about what non-traditional talent means or looks like. So we at TRIMEDX describe non-traditional talent as someone who doesn't have a traditional biomed background, who hasn't necessarily explored or expanded their skill set and education in the biomed space. They might not even have any biomed training. However, they are skilled and they do have experience in an indirectly related field. Now, what does that mean? What does an indirectly related field or tangential field mean? If we navigate to the next slide, I do have a prescriptive list of what TRIMEDX as well as the Department of Labor have defined as kind of these relative career fields, right? They all, touch biomed in some way and or skills that you are required to have in biomed. So those appearing on the screen are, of course, electronics techs, folks who specialize in the telecom and or satellite space, those actually working as technologists on these biomedical pieces of equipment. Of course, you can't leave out those that are in the aviation and or automotive or heavy machinery space too, because they just understand the inner workings of components and the complexities of device inner workings and maintenance. As you start to expand on the sterilizer space, you're also talking, broadly to those who've served some time in maybe water treatment, water system, those types of career fields. We're also, we've also expanded to consider those who have been in mainly, general building maintenance or equipment maintenance. We often find that those folks can transition to the industry with ease given the right opportunities and experiences and training. On the sterilizer front, again, we also include plumbers, HVAC technicians. This isn't all inclusive or exhaustive by any stretch of the imagination, but these are ones that I wanted to call special attention to. Now, you're probably thinking, okay, that's great. Thanks for giving us the 411 on what we would consider non-traditional talent, but why does this matter? Why is this important to us? Well, let's navigate to the next slide. And I think this is going to make a very poignant and important point here. So these are rough figures, but we're suggesting that there are a little over 66,000 available jobs in the healthcare technology management industry. And this is United States specific data. I want to make sure to qualify that. We at any given time, though, have only 50,000 trained biomedical technicians. So what does that mean? We are already at a net negative unemployment rate. Couple that then with, again, our aged workforce, and our anticipation of those exiting the industry in the next 0 to 2 years is heightened, higher than we've probably seen in years past. And then, of course, we add in the added component or complexity that I mentioned earlier, and that is we're not necessarily drawing in the same number or figures of folks into the industry. Now, we're doing some really good work on that front, and I don't want to diminish or devalue all the work that your companies, as well as Amy and quite a few are already doing. However, we already are seeing and existing in this workforce gap. So our goal here at TRIMEDX is to bridge the gap between those related career fields to not only marketing opportunities in healthcare technology management, but also providing then the appropriate pathways, resources, and abilities for them to be successful in a biomed career. So let's navigate to the next slide. This is more specific data. We won't spend a lot of time here, but this is based on Department of Labor statistics. Again, if you go to their website, you can find a lot of this independently. You wouldn't necessarily need me to pull these figures for you. But not only are we at a skill gap or skill deficit today, we are continued or projected to grow faster than a lot of other industries, especially the industry average, in terms of our importance. We are important. I don't think hospitals could operate without us, right? But not only that, the amount and type of devices and the complexity of our work, which we'll talk about in a minute, is also changing and evolving, which is going to increase the need for healthcare technology management professionals. So let's move to the next slide. I don't think it's enough. I know it's not enough simply for us to make hiring decisions and invite non-traditional talent into our industries. It's not enough to offer them the position. That doesn't necessarily equate to organizational and or site level and or associate success. In addition to considering and hiring non-traditional talent in your organizations, it's vitally important that we also offer very prescriptive training plans that are inclusive of day 0 to day 365, if not past that. But that first year is vitally important for us to have some very prescriptive measurements translating medical terminology. What is this medical device called? How does it operate? Why is it used? Where do you find it in the hospital? What do the inner workings look like? It's also important to factor in OEM education. I think a lot of you hopefully are nodding your head there. That's a certain complexity that they wouldn't necessarily have skills in being in a related career field. They likely understand, though, the importance of an OEM, right? The device manufacturer, that's probably something that they understand in those career fields, but in the medical space, we can attest it's different. The training plan should also include some very specific and explicit education related to preventative maintenance, regulations guiding that preventative maintenance schedule, why preventative maintenance is important, what documentation should be included. Also, systems and technology is huge. I'll talk about this in just a bit, but it's, you know, as our career field or our industry is transforming on the tech and the security space, it's vitally important to make sure that we equip them with the systems and technology training. And then last but certainly not least, the customer experience. Our customer dynamic is drastically different than consumer customers. So the way in which, you all know this, the way in which we communicate with our customers is likely different than they've experienced in the past. So that training plan should also include some very prescriptive notes about how to engage with customers, what they want to see, what they want to hear, how to assure them or provide assurance, what data is important to them, and then how to create that really strong relationship. Another element, though, of that first year that is vitally important is this idea of mentoring. If you don't have an existing mentoring program at your organization, I think it's definitely within your control to create an unofficial mentoring program by aligning that non-traditional talent with a skilled technician, someone who probably grew up in the industry, knows it frontwards, backwards, and sideways, and can recognize a whole host of issues before they arise. That knowledge sharing and knowledge transfer is vital, and honestly, it really influences your ramp-up period. So if you do all of these things right, you're no longer looking at a 0 to 1 year ramp up period. Rather, you probably shorten that to maybe 6 months. You have a fully fully functioning non-traditional associate who's operating in this space within a 6-month period, and that's huge. And I know that's important for each of you too, to lighten, lessen the burden of you and your other teammates. One other thing I thought was important to note in this space was I wanted to give some specific examples of maybe how we've done it. Now, this isn't, again, not an all-inclusive list, but I always love a good narrative. I'm a reader. Unfortunately, I'm a fiction fan. So this is nonfiction. However, I think they tell a really good story. So here's one of our associates. This is someone whom we've hired and have seen significant success with. This associate was raised in a farming family, spent all of his early years into his early career years through college, up until college age, helping as a farmhand, maintaining the farming equipment, understanding the mechanics of a farm. He then left home, didn't necessarily want to continue his career in farming, and he studied electronics in an associate's program. He then subsequently after that heard about clinical engineering just on a whim. And most of you on this call can probably say that either you had a family member in the industry or you just lucked into hearing about the industry, because those are the only two ways that you usually hear about clinical engineering. We're trying to transform that, but he just kind of lucked into hearing about clinical engineering and has now worked as a technician and has advanced into a supervisor position with us. The next associate I wanted to highlight on the following screen is a candidate who came to us with quite a bit of military experience. This person's experience was as a Navy submarine navigation electronics technician. This person had a education at a high school diploma level, at a high school level, and they joined us as a skilled technician, believe it or not. And some of you might be thinking, well, that seems strange. How do you bring someone with no biomed experience into a skilled technician role? And that's where your training plan and your mentorship is key in advancing and indicating and preparing that person for success. So without further ado, let's advance to some other trends that we're seeing surface. I wish I could see a show of hands, or I wish we could engage here, but I hope you're all tracking with me. Here are some other transformational trends that TRIMEDX has been eyeing and for quite some time, and we've also partnered again with some of our industry partners, and these are things that we all agree are probably pretty key or pretty important to look out for. First and foremost is the technologic evolution of technician roles. If you're not experiencing this today, you will. It's been, I think, a slow transformation, but we're about to, I think we're going to hit fast forward here soon, regardless of what type of shop you work for. We're going to see the technician role really expand into more of this technologic space, device patching, a lot of these cyber elements. You're going to see a significant shift there. Also, as it relates to program continuity, no matter how you're providing your service, but making sure you're an extension of your customer, wherever that space is, but having access via system integrations, data integrations, what have you, but really engaging at a new level with your customer sites. And then finally, we're seeing it today, but it's going to become increasingly more influential and more important and more impactful, is this idea of patient data security and patient safety as a whole. So why did I list these? If this might not be necessarily new information for you, however, I want to challenge each of you today as you think about the transformational trends of our industry as a whole. Consider where you are in your career today, and if any of these areas really excite you, my challenge to you is, after we disconnect today, do something to advance your knowledge, skills, abilities, education, or training, etc., in one of these spaces. Trust me, future you will thank you. Future you will just be ecstatic about the evolution of your career. But these are the places where you really want to invest in learning and knowledge, because it's where the industry is going. Well, thank you. I'm going to transition or pivot over to Sarina, who's going to tell us some practical tips as it relates to preparing yourself for the job search and/or considering candidates in the search process.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Great job, Courtney. And I know, like I mentioned before, I know I'm going to be talking to a lot of different perspectives here, but I think whether you are entering into you're already in the job search, you're entering into the clinical engineering space, or you are already well underway with your career, I think that, there might be some tips or some things that I mentioned that could be a good refresher for you, or things that you can actually start to implement no matter what level that you're at. And, right now, or even the past few years, like, the job market has not been easy. I think we can all attest to, the difficulty in finding the right fit, the difficulty and maybe sometimes the overwhelming feeling of, wanting to be seen as an applicant and trying to stand out, with your resume or in interview skills. There's so many factors that go into, one, us as applicants, making sure that our next home or company that we call home is going to be the best fit for us in moving our careers forward. But it's also a huge feat in, presenting ourselves, branding ourselves in a way where we can be seen as that top talent, or someone who is coachable, who is willing to learn, and really, is looking for an opportunity to be able to perform. So with all of that, I think I'll kind of jump in here with resume. I like to consider the resume as the highlight reel, or the news feed if you're in social media. Your resume is not going to tell your life story, right? It's not going to be able to truly convey all that you do in your current jobs or previous internships, but it will highlight, the most important aspects of those jobs as it relates to whatever job it is that you want to move into. Now, of course, as a recruiter, and I'll talk from my perspective of what I'm looking for, of what I tend to see, of course, we're looking for relevant education, or, appropriate experience that might line up with a high school degree. So for example, for a biomedical technician level 1, we'd like to see an associate's degree. If not, we'd love to see a GED or a high school degree with some years of experience in a transferable industry. The next thing, what skills do you have that might be from other industries? And I know Courtney touched on this a bit, so I won't go too deep with this, but what skills do you have that are transferable? I was actually thinking about the fact that there's so many things that we do in other industries that definitely can apply to the clinical engineering space, but sometimes it's about how we show up and how we are communicating those skills that can sometimes get overlooked by recruiters. I'm not sure if y'all have heard this, but on average, a recruiter probably spends 30 seconds to a minute looking at a resume. I won't say that I do that, but just keeping it real, when you have such a high volume of applications and candidates that want to interview, that want to be reviewed, sometimes it can be not a lot of time that recruiters are spending on, really understand, like looking through and reading through resumes. So if you've got 30 seconds to a minute to, really provide a high level overview of what you have to bring to the table, does your resume communicate that right now? The how effective, how concise are you in the keywords and the vocabulary that you're using? For example, maybe you are coming from maybe you're a printer technician and you want to transition into the biomedical space. It could be, and I wrote this down because I didn't want to forget. I see this so many times on a resume. Someone might say, works on equipment for various companies, just a very vague statement like that, to highlight or to communicate what they do in their current role as a printer technician. But how much of a difference might it sound to think about, okay, I know that the biomedical technician role is involved with troubleshooting. It's involved in repairing equipment. It's involved with maybe working on at different hospital sites or working for different clients. How could I take that very vague blanket statement and transition it to something that's a little bit more specific, something that might, when a recruiter is reading my resume, might sound like a biomedical technician, so that the recruiter can think, oh, wow, this sounds really similar to what we're looking for. I should reach out to this candidate and get more information about their background. So instead of saying, works on equipment for various companies, maybe you could say troubleshoot and repair XYZ printers and network equipment for mid-size retail companies throughout the region. Sounds very different, right? It has a little bit more depth, a little bit more detail in terms of the type of equipment that you do have experience working on, but you're also using those keywords. You're also using that vocabulary that is similar to the biomedical technician industry. So that's just a clear example. Something that I see a lot when it comes to resumes is, are candidates really taking the time to think about what they're communicating on their resume and how relevant is that to the position that you're applying for? I definitely recommend that people take the time to do some research. There's a lot of jobs out there that you're applying to, but take the time to read through the job description to really understand. And once you look at multiple job descriptions, you'll start to pick up on what are those keywords, what's the vocabulary that this space is using, so that I can think about what I could use as transferable skills to that space. You'll also get a feel for what roles are really looking for. I know in my next slide I'll touch on certificates, but a lot of people tend to jump into wanting to get certificates or signing up for different programs that could showcase your learning ability. But if you're seeing multiple jobs not asking for that certificate, is that really important? So I'll kind of jump over to that now. But overall, with resume preparation, you definitely want to highlight the most important things about your experience as well as your education. It's not meant to, be a novel or a story, so to speak, but it's really meant to be as concise and effective as possible while really highlighting transferable skills or those specific skills that you are already qualified for the job. Now, standing out, like I mentioned, when we're looking at maybe a biomedical technician position, an associate's degree or higher is definitely valuable. We understand the commitment that it takes to acquire a degree. Sometimes that comes with hands-on experience within that specific space that you're looking to do. But also too, like, equivalent experience is also really, really helpful, especially in this space where it is more field work or hands-on. Longevity in employment. I think that is something that as recruiters we look at. It's not something that honestly is as uncommon today. You know, over the last few years, a lot of companies have faced layoffs, or maybe for different family reasons or health reasons, candidates, you know, have needed to maybe take time off. So we're seeing that there are sometimes gaps in people's careers. But with that being said, I think just being prepared to explain those gaps of employment or reasons for maybe moving through a few different jobs within a short period of time, I think that'll be really important to communicate to recruiters as well as hiring managers that you're talking to. But overall, you know, from an HR standpoint, just taking the time to understand why those gaps are happening. Because, you know, whenever you're looking to hire, you want to make sure that the people that you're hiring are capable of, you know, staying long term, you know, leveraging the resources, growing their careers with the company that you're bringing them onto. So that's also a really important point as well. Internships, certificates, all of these things are really helpful. The more hands-on experience that you can gain is absolutely going to aid in your ability to jump into a new role. Certifications, of course. Now, of course, I'm talking to a lot of different people here, so I won't list off specific certifications, but, you know, take the time to research. Maybe if you're currently in a clinical engineering role, maybe talking to your manager about your career development and finding out what certifications or programs or training opportunities do I have to be able to, you know, accelerate my career. What's going to be the most valuable as I'm continuing to grow my skill set, and the same for those wanting to jump into the industry as well. And you know, referrals, I think more than ever, companies are realizing how important it is to leverage existing networks in this industry. I think that whether you're looking to jump in or you've already been in, the power of networking and being able to not only communicate your skill sets and have a network that can stand behind you and advocate for your skill sets is so important, but also too, leveraging your network to help other people to enter the industry as well. You know, the last few different roles that I've been in as a recruiter, they've all come from people that I've known. You know, it wasn't because I took the time to, you know, make my application look really good and it just happened to sparkle as a recruiter was, you know, sifting through thousands of applications. It was because there was someone in that company that I knew that understood the skill sets that I brought to the table, understood, you know, my performance as an employee and, you know, what I could bring to the table. So that's what helped me get my last few jobs. And so I really encourage people to take the time to not overlook, you know, the effort that goes into building a network, whether it is taking the time to create a LinkedIn profile, taking the time to, you know, not only add new connections on LinkedIn or whatever platforms or groups that there might be, but taking the time to engage in a conversation with those people and let them know what you're excited about in the next steps of your career. And also, you know, being willing to help other people out as well. So for us, I know at TRIMEDX, we have a really huge emphasis on referrals right now, because as we all know, the workforce in terms of finding talent, it is getting, you know, even more difficult these days. And so the more that we can have, you know, recommendations from our internal staff to say, hey, I vouch for this person, they've got XYZ skills to bring to the table, I know that they would be a great asset here. You know, the more that we can enter more candidates into the process and be able to, you know, further assess if they're going to be a great fit. So I definitely encourage people to take the time to really, you know, refer people that you know into the companies that you're working for, but also grow your network, because as you're looking to grow your career, you will be able to leverage your network to help you to get to that next step. All righty. And to wrap up here, I'll try not to take too much more time, but there's a lot that I could share when it comes to interview best practices. So when it comes to the resume, like I'd like to mention, that's the highlight reel. That's the movie trailer, so to speak. Or that's, you know, you rang the doorbell and your neighbor is looking out the window or looking on their video cam to see if they want to open the door and see why you're knocking on the door, right? That's the entry point. The interview is actually, the movie. It's actually your story. It's your opportunity to take more time to dive into the skill sets, the journey that you've had in your career, or the skills that you've been acquiring and learning to be able to be successful in that industry. So there's a lot that goes into it, right? And I don't like to make it seem like, once you've got the interview, you're good to go, because it's so important to take the time to prepare for your interview. You've done so much work to apply for the job, do research, get your resume together. It's even as important to make sure that you've got a successful interview to be able to close the deal and hopefully get an offer for your next role. So just a few things that I've noticed in my time of working with a lot of different candidates. I know these days a lot of interviews tend to be virtual, but despite it being virtual, I encourage people to dress up, even for a phone call interview, because it just adds on an element of confidence that might be, you might not feel a difference, but in the inflection in your voice, it comes through as having more confidence. I also encourage people, especially if it's a phone call, to smile while you are talking on the phone, because people can feel your smile as well. That's really important. Communication before and after your interviews. I think just being mindful of your email communication with maybe recruiter or hiring manager, being concise, using grammar, completing sentences, things like that. So I know sometimes, we're already busy professionals and we might get an email on our phone to book, the next interview. And so we might reply back really quickly on our phones. But all of those things translate into, how is this person going to be representing our company should we extend an offer? So every step of the way, you want to make sure that you're as thorough as possible in your communication and, expressing your appreciation and excitement for the next step. Those are small things that really go a long way, especially when there might be multiple candidates at the end of the process. We a lot of times, it could come down to, okay, these candidates have great skills. They all have something to bring to the table. But, where's the eagerness, the appreciation, the ability to be a lifelong learner, the, ability to come in and be a great team player. And all of those things show through our communication throughout the interview process. Preparing before the interview, of course. When it comes to interview questions, sometimes it can be hard to know exactly what maybe the company or the team will be throwing at you and wanting to ask. You can absolutely reach out to your recruiter to get a heads up, to maybe understand what topics will be focused on. And so with those insights, really take the time to write down all of, as many applicable experiences that you think would be valuable to that job, so that you've already got a few different notes that you can rely on to be able to share. And sometimes when there's no preparation, it comes off in an interview. Sometimes candidates might stumble over their words a lot, or may take a long time to be able to respond, or maybe they answer really quickly and they realize that answer probably was not the best answer for that question. And if they had prepared beforehand and had a few different experiences or stories to be able to tell ahead of time, they might have been able to provide an answer that was more applicable to that question. And also just take the time to think about, what's your story? What's your journey been like? Where are you currently now? But where did you start? What does that growth look like? Being able to share how much you've transformed in your career, or if you're just getting started, to showcase where you want to go. Those things can be really valuable in the interview process as well. And I've touched on this before, but enthusiasm definitely is really important. Showing that you are very serious, but also excited about the role, it really does make a difference. And then some other things, just making sure that you are putting your best foot forward when it comes to communication. A lot of times interviews can kind of seem a little overwhelming. We really want to get the job. We're really excited about the opportunity, but maybe we are worried that, maybe some of our skill sets, are they really transferable? Are they going to be a great fit? So taking the time to slow down a bit and provide the most effective communication that you can. I always encourage candidates to use what we call the STAR method to be able to be as clear and concise as possible. And that breaks down, you all can see it on the screen, situation, or S for situation, T for task, A for action, and R for result. If there's more, these are great for more situational questions. Maybe tell me about a time that you faced a difficult situation. Or tell me about a time that you had to work through a problem with a coworker. There's a number of different situational questions, and following this acronym while you're in an interview process can definitely help you to stay on track with providing the most pertinent information that's needed. And then lastly, definitely encourage everyone to bring questions to the table. It's great when you're not only being asked questions, but you can ask questions back. It shows that you really are taking the time to make sure that this is going to be a great fit for you in terms of the company and joining. But it also shows that you have taken the time to really think about the role, and you want to learn more about the team. You want to understand the position a bit better and how it's going to be a great fit. And the power of the pause. This is really important. A lot of times when a hiring manager is asking a question, sometimes we really want to ask, or we really want to answer as fast as possible. But there is power in the pause of taking a moment to think about what is being presented to you and thinking about, what's going to be the best example or the best information that you could share in that moment. Sometimes we think that pausing makes it seem like we're scrambling to find an answer, or we're not exactly sure how to answer the question, but taking a moment to compile your thoughts can be really helpful and can help you to stay calm and confident throughout the process. So I know I threw a lot out there, but hopefully this was helpful, and happy to answer any questions that there are. But that is it for me and for Courtney.
Yeah, and Sarina, so many times that you were sharing those tips and tricks, I was thinking of other instances or other situations that a lot of folks in this call might use that. And there's so many use cases for that discipline, right? So whether it's you as a hiring leader using these practical tips to transform your selection process, or things to look out for, right? Because these are coaching methodologies, but also how to influence or change or transform your customer conversations. So all really practical skills. Thank you so much for sharing those.
Thanks.
Perfect. Great. I've got a couple of questions that have come in. The first question is, does TRIMEDX provide internship and apprenticeship opportunities?
We do. I'm so glad you asked. So we are in our second year of offering an apprenticeship program. We are part of the AMIAN Department of Labor apprenticeship program, yet obviously have a TRIMEDX spin. But we have one hiring class each year, and that typically starts midsummer. So I can provide some more information to those. My contact information is there on the screen. Reach out to me directly, and I'll make sure to provide you with what those classes look like when we begin hiring for them, what the expectations are. We also, though, we do offer internships. This year, though, we are in a transformational period of what our internship program looks like. So some really fun and exciting stuff on the TRIMEDX side for that. But again, reach out to me directly, and I want to give you all the goods.
Perfect. So how can I get more information about TRIMEDX or the job opportunities that might be available in my area?
Sarina is going to be a great resource for you. In addition to obviously tapping on her, one thing I want to make sure is really or abundantly clear is if you have decided that you're going to start this transformational career journey, The power of connection is so important. So Sarina mentioned this as it related to referrals, but because our world is so big, we've made it so small now with a lot of these technological advancements. So build connections, whether that's email, like she suggested, LinkedIn messaging, you name it. Find ways to really connect and humanize yourself. So Sarina's going to be a really good point of contact for that. But we also have a talent network. And the really cool part about joining the talent network is you can make it work for you. So you can configure job alerts, you enter your criteria, and you suggest to the technology of the system that you want to hear when a position is available that meets that set criteria. You don't have to look or scrape every day. It curates it for you. And then we also put together quarterly newsletters that shares all the latest and greatest that's going on in the TRIMEDX space as well as the industry as a whole. And I'm telling you, it's chock full of good info. So reach out to Sarina too, and she'll give you some insight on how to jump in or join that talent network.
Perfect. Another question here is, as a recent graduate from North Seattle College's HTM program and someone who comes from a non-traditional background as an AV technician, I'm curious if there's a model that collaborates with existing educational institutions.
Yeah, I think we have some work to do there. We do have developed and designed relationships with institutions, but I'd say as an industry whole, there's probably some better alignment that needs to happen at that level. And Sarina, I know you're doing a lot of work in this space, so I'd love it if you have anything to contribute to that too.
Yeah, I mean, I wish that I could think of like maybe some specific programs or not, but I know that we are doing a lot of work to really help to identify more candidates, get the word out that, hey, there are transferable skills here too that can be applicable to these types of roles. So like you said, Courtney, there's definitely a lot of work that we can do to continue to get the word out and help people to be more aware that they can bring their skill sets to the table in this space as well.
Internships are always important. A lot of employers, us included, are also extending kind of job shadow programs. So we're not necessarily committing to full internship or apprenticeship terms, but we want to give you a peek behind the curtain of what a career in HTM might look like. Take advantage of those too, because while it's not necessarily an interview, one would maybe qualify it as a working interview, but it gives you an opportunity to expand your network.
Okay, we actually have quite a few international attendees. They do attend nearly every week, but one of them has asked me, do you help international candidates?
TRIMEDX's business is currently domestic, so US domestic. Now, though, I would be remiss in suggesting though the industry as a whole doesn't have a lot of opportunity for you, because there are. Tap into both, again, Sarina and myself, and we'll help you kind of expand or explore what those opportunities or avenues might look like, because it's limitless.
Perfect. Right, before we wrap up, ladies, is there anything you'd like to expand on or summarize?
I want to thank you again for being here. I know time is so valuable and so precious. So for you to spend it with us again, I just wanted to extend my thanks. And then just one parting thought, and that is, regardless of what brand you're here today representing, recognize though that the work we do changes lives. The work we do transforms lives. The work we do is vitally important. So as we start to explore kind of these transformational efforts, be sure to jump on board. Be sure to be willing to help and support whomever it is that needs that support, and also be willing to reach your hand out and bring people in, right? I think that's really important, is ensuring that we're all offering the opportunity that we were once given. So thank you again for being here. We're honored.
Perfect. Great advice. Thank you so much, Sarina and Courtney, for your time and for a really informative presentation. Thank you. I'd like to encourage everyone to visit today's sponsor to learn more about the services they provide to the industry. So again, please visit TRIMEDX.com. As promised, the answer to today's trivia question is Roald Dahl. So congratulations to our winner, Logan Lozano in Texas. So Logan, enjoy your AirPods. And just a quick reminder, you can obtain your CE certificate by completing the post-webinar survey, which will be emailed 1 hour after the completion of today's webinar. You must complete the survey to receive your 1 CE credit from the ACI, and you'll be able to download the certificate directly from your computer once you've submitted the survey. If you have any questions, you can reach us at webinar@mdpublishing.com. Now, if you've missed any of our past webinars, please visit webinarwednesday.live to view our whole webinar archive. We'll be back next week with another webinar and another 10th anniversary prize. So again, please visit webinarwednesday.live for more details and complimentary registration. Thanks again for your time today, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.